What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Showdown Breakdown. Where my Turds at show, where we got the Eagles taking on the Seahawks. It's all the birds flying high for this one. All right. In Philadelphia. Right now, the game carries a 49-point total and a 6-point spread. So what we're going to do today is take a look at this game from a DFS perspective. I would like to introduce both of my experts, my pros, my mans here. Bobby Clinks, a.k.a. BobbyWOW, two-time Million Maker winner. What's up, my man?
Hey. What's up, Geek?
Oh, man, I'm feeling good. I'm excited for the slate tonight. Birds are flying. I got DFS up north over there. What's up, Josh? How you doing, my man?
Good. I mean, I've already made my lineups for tonight, so please don't talk me off anything. Just agree with everything I say.
We will be talking you off a lot of things, and the big news for this slate, and I think everything, guys, revolves around this. I don't really get into too much depth for anything. Everything revolves around this idea that the field believes that Carson Wentz could be benched during this game. The field has what I believe is an incorrect belief that Jalen Hurts is going to be getting lots of carries or lots of reps in this particular game. And I'm going to be really, really curious to know how you guys both see dealing with that information across both FanDuel and DraftKings, but just overall from a DFS perspective and from a game theory perspective. Just game theoristically, right? As
Sure.
we think about that, you like that word I just made up?
Yeah, it was.
I love it.
Yeah,
Get that in there. That'll be in
good one.
Webster's next year.
Yeah, that'll make it. That'll make it. What I think it's going to be. So what the general consensus, oh, Wentz sucks. You're hearing it. I love the DFS Army chat because you get the general consensus of what the public is thinking when you start to listen and read through the chat. And it's oh, Wentz is terrible. They're going to bench him. Should I play Jalen Hurts? Should I not play anybody from the Eagles? Is this going to be a destruction, right?
Right.
If the field is thinking that, the first thing that came to my mind is I love being contrarian by doing something that's not stupid and not really contrarian, playing the Eagles pass catchers and assuming that the game goes the way that Vegas has it set, 49 points, 6-point spread, not a destruction. Seattle plays close games. And, we've been targeting Seattle defense all season with every offense. All of a sudden, we're afraid of playing Jalen Reagor and Travis Fulgham. I don't like that. I want to play those guys now even more. What's your take, BobbyWOW? What you've got a contrarian mind like no other.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Geek, you're right. This is what's going to make or break the slate. I mean, to me, I think the wide receivers for Philly are absolutely in play. I love Reagor. I love Goddard. I like Fulgham. I just can't fully support a Carson Wentz rostering, even with the idea that he's going to have 10% less snaps than he normally does, because he's not good. He's not good regardless. I mean, he hasn't been very good regardless. Yes, he's a quarterback. Yes, he's going to produce, but Jalen Hurts taking first team reps, that's not there just for show.
Well, hold up. I did just read an article that he actually never took first team reps, and that was just all
really
fake news. Yes.
Fake news.
Yeah, that was just fake news.
Well, then my take should be pretty good. So I agree with Bobby.
Wait, let me just get into that real quick. This is really important. That was just fake news, bro. He didn't do that.
Really?
Doug Peterson kind of said that, but then other beat reporters were like, no, we asked, and he got the same number of reps with the first team that he always gets every week. It wasn't more, and that was all basically fake news.
Doug Peterson drives me crazy. I'll just say that.
Don't listen to that fucker, man. Don't listen to him.
Either of these coaches.
He's basically I don't even want to get into it. I can go off on the whole fake. I'm not even going to do it. Just it's fake news. He didn't nothing. It's all bullshit. Basically, there's a lot of pressure in Philadelphia to bench Carson Wentz, and they don't want to do it. But there's a lot of pressure. So it's like, well, maybe I'll give Hurts a couple reps this week or a series or two. That can happen.
All right.
Well, I'll finish by saying this real quick. Yeah. The one thing about Carson Wentz is we know for a fact that he's the starting quarterback tonight. And we know for a fact the Seattle secondary is god awful. It's atrocious. So I think in any case, if he gets off to a hot start, which is certainly possible, then at low ownership, he's a guy that could go off given the game scenarios. We know that Seattle's offense is good. We think the Eagles will probably end up chasing for most of the game. So certainly possible that happens.
My take on it is, as I agree with Bobby on of anybody in the DFS Army universe, I am maybe the biggest Carson Wentz hater there is. And I think that he is very hard to roster on FanDuel at his salary, especially if there's any indication that he's going to split some reps, because he just doesn't score that well to begin with. He hangs on to the ball too long. He makes some unreal plays at times. He makes a lot of bonehead decisions too. But on DraftKings, for me, I'm just going to, I did my roster lineups already. I have 38% Wentz. Feel like that's right around field average at his price tag. I paired him with the receiver in the flex. I have 10% Jalen Hurts just in case. What I am seeing now, though, I just a little Twitter search on the local Philadelphia pregame. They're stating that, or Jeff Mosher NFL reporting that Eagles owner Jeff Lurie gave directive to play Jalen Hurts if Carson Wentz struggles.
Yeah, that is what I think. Okay. So bring it all back around. That is what I said. Actually, I said to Sun Tzu on Twitter, what up? Shout out Sun Tzu. What I said to Sun Tzu on Twitter was, because he's like, stop me from betting all of my money on under 238 yards passing for Carson Wentz. And my answer was this. Listen, it's going to go one of two ways.
Yep.
Either Wentz implodes and he fumbles and he's been an interception machine. If that happens, then yes, they're going to be like, enough is enough. Okay, so he is 100% in danger of losing the job. And it could happen today. But it's not happening. It's not pre-planned that they're going to take it away. I said, if Wentz comes out and he doesn't throw 2 interceptions and look like dog shit, then he's going to play the whole game. And maybe they will bring in Hurts for a 3-down series or 2 or even 3 over the course of the game. But not for even a full series, just like a couple of downs and a first down, that kind of thing. The way that New Orleans might have done with Taysom Hill when Breeze was healthy. So that danger, that risk is 100% there. And you're right. Don't put Wentz as your captain.
No,
in your cash lineup.
Is the contrarian play, because I feel like people just tend to force QBs in. Is the contrarian play to just play no QBs? No Eagles QBs?
Yeah, you don't have to play. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
If Wentz plays half the game and he sucks ass,
he's not in the
The only way, don't do the 3 QB lineup. No, that is a no. Because there's only one way that Hurts is in there doing a lot, and that's if Wentz literally stinks it up. That's how Hurts gets in there. So if you're going to play Hurts, don't play Wentz. Now, with all of that being said, I think, and Bobby, this is to your point, I think the Eagles pass catchers are fine. I don't care what happens. They'll be fine. Fulgham and Goddard. And I think Goddard is way better with Wentz than anybody else.
Yes.
The tight ends will do better with Wentz. If Hurts comes in, you're probably a little better off with the Fulghams and the Ragers of the world. But those pass catchers are fine. That's the way I'm going. In my cash lineup, the way I'm going is I'm just playing pass catchers. Give me Rager. He's cheap for a starting wide receiver. Fine by me. Travis Fulgham, he's shown massive upside with Wentz. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So, big elephant in the room, man, a 10-minute elephant in the room. Anything to add there, Bobby Wow?
I don't think so. Like you said, I would just make sure you're not playing Wentz in cash. And, for me on FanDuel, I just will not have any exposure in the MVP slot either. Even in GPP, I just don't like it. So, I think both scenarios are possible, and it's a risk that you don't have to take. So there is a third choice.
Yeah, and Wentz is very expensive. That's part of it. On FanDuel in particular, you roster 2 quarterback. I mean, you kind of want to roster Russ. I actually think there's an interesting contrarian approach where you don't roster Russ.
Me too.
GPP.
All right. Yeah, I knew you were sneakily thinking about that. So I like that. Now, let's take a look at one of my favorite tools to use. One of the great tools that we have over at DFS Army. Guys, if you're not using the prop finder tool, Josh, tell them about the prop finder. Tell them what a believer you are in that.
I like. Should we start like from the beginning when I wasn't a believer and I didn't understand how this was
like, where you DM me, you're like, Geek, what the fuck are you doing with the stupid
like
tool?
why are you spending all this money on it?
Why are you bothering with it? Right?
And now I am like, it is the one that is the matchup tool, like the 2 tabs I have open on my screen all the time. I had it open a minute ago. I was looking at Jalen Hurts' props for tonight. Which is 33 passing yards and I think 18 rushing yards, just so you know. And that's tough to swallow at his price tag, even because you're thinking that's a medium. Like he's likely to go under that probably. But yeah, it aggregates all of the props. I always keep it on New Jersey because I don't live in a state with legal betting, and that has the most sites for you. So we get FanDuel, PointsBet, DraftKings, and you can see the difference between the sites on their props, and it gives you a good idea. Like, interestingly enough, like DraftKings is for Wentz under 237 is now -125, which is a decent favorite to be under 237. So it's changed the way I definitely do some of my research.
I think it's a sucker bet.
Oh, it's a big time sucker bet.
I think it's a sucker bet. The other day there was a big prop for Mike Tyson to knock out Roy Jones Jr. in the first round. I was like, this is the biggest sucker bet I've ever seen. I bet on, you know what I bet? I bet not Mike Tyson to get a knockout. And that actually accidentally won because the draw, it doesn't matter. But the point was, because that won because it was a draw. But I was like, good, do people think he's 21? This is a sucker bet. This is people believing the fake news. Now, basically, this bet is, does Wentz get pulled over the course of this game? What scenario is it where they play Seattle a full game and Wentz doesn't throw for 230 yards? If he gets pulled.
And you get plus money on that?
I mean, I'm pretty sure Sam Darnold could throw for 238 yards against the Seattle at home. Not on the road. They're not at Seattle. They're at home.
Right? Yeah.
Got the cardboard cutouts of all the Philly fans. Oh, cheering them on. All right. Matchups tool as well. Love the matchups tool. Really helpful. So the reason actually I brought up the prop finders because I wanted to look at not the quarterbacks. I wanted to look at the running backs. I'm a big Chris Carson guy for this game.
Yeah.
I think that number one, it's going to have a little bit of kind of like maybe moisture on the ground.
Pouring there right now.
I don't know if it's going to still be raining during game time. We're not counting on that, but there'll still be like a little wet, a little slippily. Nighttime in the East Coast. It's kind of warm here in New York. I assume it's warm over there. It's kind of a nice night actually, but it's very humid. So I think that Seattle is going to go back to the run, and I wanted to take a look at this. 105 yards, 12.5 rushing attempts on the over side. Receiving yards 20, which I really, really like. Over 2.5 receptions, which I love, is -143. So heavy bend towards 3 receptions. We could do the math. That's 3 points, another 2, another 5, right? That's 10, 10.5. Give me half a touchdown, 13, 14 points. That's your median projection for Chris Carson. I think it's going to go over. I'd bet all of the overs on this. All of them. Dobby's just not, man. I take your opinion and Josh's opinion more than mine, but you guys agree?
100%.
Yep.
All right, so everybody's on board with that. Sanders. Okay. So
that's
the other running back in this game. We got Miles Sanders. Now, here's what's interesting, guys. Miles Sanders projects even better according to these props. Not that I expect him to do better because I like the favored running back personally. But, I mean, 62 yards. Not as many. More touches. Same number of receiving yards and even more on the over. So let's do the math. 6.5. Another 20. I'm going to call this 4. So it's 8, 12 plus half a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's 15. That's like everybody would play Carson. Sanders projects even a little bit better. I'm less confident in Sanders because I like the favored running back, but overall, the running backs look good in this game. So that's where I just wanted to use the tool for that. Now, let's get into DraftKings and FanDuel specific strategy, guys. We did a little bit more on this whole Wentz thing than normally we do at the beginning of one of these, but let's get to the cheat sheets. All right, let's start on DraftKings. Captain spot. Now, what do we know about the DraftKings captain spot? Normally, we want running backs and wide receivers above quarterbacks. Unless it's some quarterback that spreads the football around. As a matter of fact, Aaron Rodgers almost got there yesterday.
That was A-Rob, though.
He didn't get there, but he almost did.
I was nervous about Rodgers early. Like that made me a little anxious.
Yeah, he almost got there. Bobby, wow, did you have any Aaron Rodgers as your MVP last night? Or captain?
0.
And you didn't play any Devontae Adams. Did you take $1 million yesterday?
No.
No?
Yeah, but Bobby built lineups emotionally last night. You can take that.
Oh, yeah, wait, I forgot. I forgot Trubisky. But you should have had a lot of Allen Robinson there.
I did.
He built lineups emotionally.
All right, we won't talk about it. We won't talk about that. Allen Robinson smashed. But all right, but I know you wouldn't have Devontae Adams. I'm like, he probably faded Devontae Adams. He made all the money. Devontae Adams was not in the nuts lineup last night.
Nope.
Yeah.
We won't talk about it. Okay. Some options for captain. The most obvious ones are going to be the pass catchers for Seattle. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. To me, of course, you got to play one or both of those guys. Now, Josh, who else do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Lockett's my favorite captain just because we get a little discount off of the top two guys. But I like a little contrarian Sanders. I really like Chris Carson there. I think that he is, intriguing. They've talked a lot about him doing, really getting back to their identity of running the football. And I love that Carson, if we look back to when he was healthy at the beginning of the season, he was getting 6, 5, 4 targets a game, which really, I think, increases his floor. And then, I don't mind taking a couple of darts on like a Jalen Reagor or Travis Fulgham there too, just because, if they have, 6 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown, that might be enough to get there with the rest of, maybe a Seattle, because I mean, the assumption is that Seattle's going to kind of roll here. But yeah, I think a lot of my lineups are looking at 4 and 2, for the most part, sometimes 3 and 3, in terms of Seattle versus Eagles players, but I don't mind throwing an Eagles player in the captain slot and then running back with a bunch of Seahawks players underneath.
I want to just add in, I absolutely love Reagor and Fulgham as captain options as well. I'm not like love, because I really think there's this sense we can actually take it, we could look at the ownership projection and it will show you, but I think there's this general, I mean, look at this.
Yeah, it's so easy to get double.
Look at this. How do you get leverage? Look at, I mean, if you're only going to have 5, Bobby, wow, man. Are you seeing these numbers?
Oh yeah. That's exciting.
You're rubbing your hands together like Mr. Burns.
I mean, we saw it last night, right? With Robinson, the team. If the game scenario plays out how we think it's going to play out, that usually, mostly benefits the opposing wide receiver.
Right.
The Eagles don't really have a number one guy, so there's a couple choices, like you said. But yeah, I think they could. There's many paths to them having big nights tonight.
Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham, 3 and 5%. People ask all the time on these threads we show with DFS Army subscribers and members and users taking down these tournaments. They're like, well, why would you play Nyheim Hines at captain? That's ridiculous. No one would ever do that. No one would ever play Richie James. No one. The process is you always play those guys every single time. What I've done ever since Bobby Wow taught me how to play these the right way is I scroll through every wide receiver, everybody who could produce a 20-plus point performance. The cheaper they are, as much as I tell myself, well, what are the chances Jalen Reagor smashes? I go, it's probably better than the 3% usage that he's getting here. And if I do it, I'm probably taking down a tournament. So I literally always look for the number 2, number 1, all the wide receivers in the game, especially the ones that no one likes because they think Carson Wentz sucks. That is even better. I'm all about that. Not Swain. See, this is where I can't get deep enough, man. That is where I think it's like maybe too far. Is that going to win the Millie? Bobby Wow, will you go there?
I don't think so. I mean, if Moore's out, which I don't think he's going to be,
I think he's going to play it.
Then it's possible. But even then, I don't like it.
It's too much.
You don't have to. You just don't have to tonight.
You want the guy. You could punt.
You want the super silly? I think the super silly is Greg Ward.
I think the super silly is Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh my, yeah, that's right. Oh man, I can't fucking do that. Let's take a look at the matchup tool. How many snaps did Alshon Jeffrey?
He played like 18 last week. So
the snap count dropped.
Not gonna look good there.
From the first week he came back to last week.
I mean, I dropped him in like such a deep league where your roster, you have people like Greg Ward isn't available, and I dropped him in that league. That level of deepness. I mean, he got 7% of the snaps. I can't get on board with this. No.
It's better than Swaim.
Yeah, I don't have any Alshon captains. I do have some. I'll be over the field in the flex.
No, don't. I mean, is that 3%? What's over the field? Like 2%?
I'll have like 8 or 9%.
All right. That's fair.
I mean, did he get shitty over? I mean, obviously he's hurt, but like, he's not the worst player in the world. He's better than Greg Ward.
Oh, he's good when he's healthy. He's a good player.
I mean, it's a no for me on.
Hold on. No props. You know what? Props for
let me consult. I don't like. I make emotional decisions. I'm going to ask our technology.
The problem is you only have one of these buttons, so every time you do this,
I don't. If you think I control, I don't. This is Watson. There is a blockchain technology behind the turd detector that even I don't understand. There's like 15 servers working on this. So hold on. Turd detector. Can we play Alshon Jeffrey tonight? Will he have a good game?
Hell no. To the no, no, no. Yeah, to the no. Hell to the no. To the no, no, no. Listen.
Wasn't me. There it is. Machine learning system said
got it figured out.
It knows what we don't know.
All right, do we have? There's other turds we can play here.
There are some turds. All right, let's get the turd zone going. All right. All right, there are some turds. So let's talk Eagles turds for a minute here. I'm on your sheet. Boston Scott, Corey Clement.
Well, I don't really like Corey Clement. I just put him down. But I really do like Boston Scott. I mean, the guy's playing 40% of the snaps. He's $1,500.
That's a lot of snaps.
It's a lot of snaps.
Bobby, Boston Scott, not a FanDuel really exciting play, but DraftKings?
Definitely viable. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the backup running back overall based on playing a little more exposure to him in the assumption that the starting running back gets hurt? How much equity would you put into that?
I don't know. I mean, we've seen it happen, so it's definitely possible. It feels like it started off happening like, every 3 or 4 games we saw it at the beginning of the season. It's dropped off a little bit. And it also depends on the running back, right? Like with Boston Scott, it makes some sense to take more risk there. But like even last night with Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones didn't even get hurt and Jamal popped off. But I don't know. I don't feel that same way with Carlos Hyde.
No.
It's definitely situation to situation and price.
I don't like it either with Carlos Hyde. But I do understand why it happened last night with Jamal. A little more sense. It made a little more sense in that regard. Richard Rodgers, that's not a turd to me. At some point, we got to say Dick Rodgers is getting a lot of usage.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he's a turd. I think he's just a good play. He's getting 6%, 7% targets. Not bad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it.
Obviously, Goddard is the guy. But Dick Rodgers, yeah. I mean, he's
they play a lot of 2 tight end sets. He's going to be on the field.
He does. And Wentz does like to throw to his tight ends. He just does. Like that's a Wentz thing. So, all right, let's move over to the Seattle side of it because I think that covers most of the Eagles side. On the Seattle side, so the first question everybody wants to know is who should I play, DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett? Josh, which one should I play?
So I prefer Lockett. I wrote in my thing. It's like when things are a coin flip, I tend to go with the cheaper option, and he looks like he's going to be a little bit under owned comparatively. So I do like Lockett here. I think that Darius Slay should cover Metcalf, which isn't what it used to be, but he has struggled a little bit with shadow coverage at times. And Lockett can operate out of the slot against Nickel Roby Coleman, which I think is a better matchup. It's hard. I think if we can get both of them in the same lineup, you should. But unless you're going with Chris Carson, but yeah, I like Lockett here.
You like Lockett? How about you, Bobby? Do you have a lean one way or the other?
I'm in the same boat as Josh. I think I slightly would lean toward Lockett because of price and matchup as well. So yeah, I mean both are obviously fully in play, but if I have to make a choice, it's Lockett.
I like that Lockett on DraftKings has the his reception prop is 5.5 and it's pretty heavy to the over, which I like the value that we get there.
All I'm going to say is it's really hard to predict between these two. Matchups don't really matter that much when it comes to a DK Metcalf. So play them both. Like, if you're in a showdown and you're trying to make just one lineup, that's probably not the right way to approach a showdown for the most part anyway. Like make one with one guy, one with the other, and one with both. One of them is going off, probably. There's also an okay chance that Seattle just dominates the game with the run. But at least one of them, I think, is going to go off.
Did we see in that Arizona game that they were both in the nuts without Wilson on DraftKings?
I don't remember.
Am I being crazy there?
Bobby, do you have any memory of that?
Remember. I'll look it up while we're talking.
I don't remember. All right, so let's continue through the Seattle wide receiver group. And basically,
I don't either. I have to look it up.
David Moore is questionable for this game, and it looks like he won't play. Freddie Swain is questionable, but he is absolutely expected to play. And, Freddie Swain going to be the WR3. Has not done anything all season long. But he's out there. He's getting snaps, and he's in the right offense. And we've seen this type of player go off. He hasn't had anything all year. I mean, if you look through 1 target, 3 targets, 2. Had 4 targets last week with probably with David Moore a little bit hobbled. So, but not doing anything. He's not running the routes that give you much. He's only 200. If I have to choose between him or Boston Scott, what's the better choice in cash and tournaments?
Oh man, I mean with the discount you get on Swain, I like him for tournaments a lot. I know Scott's super cheap too. Feels to me like with 40% of the snap share, Scott is slightly safer. But I mean, at min price or close to it, I would like Swain a lot too if Moore's ruled out. Both are fine options.
Moore is not going to play. I don't think he's playing. I don't think so. Just to address this, no. Make one lineup in cash. Multiple lineups attacking tournaments. Never more than one lineup in cash.
You don't think Moore's going to play?
No, he was not expected to play. They were leaning towards doubtful with him, whereas Swain was leaning. They were much more hopeful that he's going to play. With Moore, it was more doubtful. So, listen, I'm not a doctor and I don't work for the Seattle organization. I don't have special knowledge, but just reading between the lines, it seemed like Moore's going to play or Moore's not going to play and Swain will, which does open him up. Again, a couple extra targets. You give this guy 5 targets and 35 yards, 3 receptions. Okay.
You can have value.
7 for 200 is all right. That might be the nuts. Okay, I'll take it. I do think though you're probably better off finding those turds from the Eagles or just using their cheaper skill position players in this game overall. Like I'd much rather have Rager and like Fulgham than maybe like Metcalf and Swain. If I have to add them all up, I think like there's
And that's what you have to do. I mean, that's the whole lineup construction is you got to say, okay, 2 versus 2, what's going to have the most points?
And I'll say this too. I mean, there is so much value on the slate. Don't feel like you have to force value. Don't feel like you have to play someone just because they're the cheapest. We haven't even talked about the tight ends yet, but I think there's tons of tight end value as well for cheap. So both teams
in the tight end situation. So actually, let's get to both teams' tight ends here because you're right. Totally forgot, especially on the Seattle breakdown, but also on the we talked a little bit about Goddard and Richard Rodgers for the Eagles, and Goddard is always a good play. Like they like to throw to him. Richard Rodgers, a little turdly, but a good play as well. But on Seattle, they lost Greg Olsen. He's gone. They like throwing to the tight end. Now, is it Disley or Hollister? Disley's on.
Where are you going with this, Bobby?
I think we saw Disley take the majority of the reps from Olsen last week, right? Is that right?
It led to a big 1 target.
Well, yeah, the majority of the snaps, I should say. So, he's actually, I want to say he's cheaper on FanDuel than Hollister. I don't know that that's the case.
Yeah, he is, which I was
on DraftKings. But
it's significantly different.
Same kind of thing there. Like I'm going to take Disley, who's cheaper and getting far more snaps, but both are absolutely in play. I mean, they're so cheap and they're both going to see the field a lot.
I mean, isn't it interesting that Hollister was only on the field 20% of the snaps last week, but got 11% of the targets?
That's what he does. He just doesn't like when he's out there, he's pass catching.
Yeah. So it seems like Disley is more the run blocker. The reason, though, Disley is maybe more interesting is because I think this will be a run-heavier game plan for Seattle that will bring Disley onto the field a little bit more, which, again, leads to this scenario where, he's in there blocking at the goal line. They fake it to Carson, and you're like, oh, no, the vulture. And wait a minute, it's Disley,
Well, I mean,
out for the easy freebie at the goal line.
Seattle special.
Yeah.
Last year what was that game when he had 2 touchdowns? Like, I just have that in the back of my head. Disley breaking the slate. Yeah, that's how you just hedge on one side with the other.
You got to play the Seattle tight end a little bit in some lineups. Like if you're mass multi-entering, I don't think either of them is usable in cash. So that's kind of the approach that I would use. Let's pop over. Well, very quickly, I want to kind of, I do like, everybody likes to see cash line. We're not going to make a full cash lineup because I don't want everybody who's watching this making the same freaking lineup. That's not good that way. That's not ideal, but let's take a little bit of a look at what a cash lineup might look like. And for me, I think who are some viable cash captains for you on DraftKings? I'll start with you, Josh. You're really good with cash lineup.
I think it's for me. It's essentially I'm looking at either Wilson or Lockett is kind of where I'm at, just because I think that they have the safest floors. And when I was starting my research this morning, I saw Wilson's price tag and thought, there's no way I can fit him, right? I'm going to be underweight. And then I started to build with some of this value and thought like, oh shit, like we can play a little Russell Wilson tonight. So yeah, for me, it's Wilson or Lockett.
Bobby, what do you say?
I like Russ. I think you can't go wrong with Russ. I do like Chris Carson a lot as a potential cash captain. I just think, he's going to get a ton of usage. The Philly struggles big time against the run, and if they do get ahead, he's going to be seeing even extra. handoff. So Carson's probably my preferred guy, and you could even save some money and make sure you fit in, a few middle of the road people instead of trying to punt.
Right.
It's a little more challenging. I've leaned towards Carson myself, because I feel like Lockett has at times disappeared in games. Like if it's a Metcalf game and I'm on Lockett, I'm kind of screwed.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's not. I don't think Chris Carson's disappearing in this game.
I think you can fit. So I think you can go. You can go Carson. I don't even know that you in cash. I don't know that you need a Seattle receiver.
Well, you might. This is where I'm thinking. Do we go Sanders? So it's both running backs.
That's where I go.
Yep.
Yeah, like isn't this the play? Both running backs. You get Russ in there. They got $5K left. You throw in one of your cheapies, either Boston Scott or the wide receiver Freddie Swain if he's starting. I think Boston Scott if more plays, but maybe Swain or Scott if he doesn't. Get the 3 points out of this guy or whatever he's going to get you. Even a 0 at 200 doesn't destroy my lineup.
You can go kicker with Fulgham.
Well, I mean, now you don't even need to. You go Rager and Fulgham really easily. Got plenty of money left over if you did that. Or you can maybe go, you can't get to like a Lockett. I really wanted this to work. This is actually what I wanted to see work. But I think this is enough to show on screen here in terms of like a cash game approach where you want to either mix in like a Lockett or a couple of wide receivers from the Eagles that are likely to do well. Even Goddard. Actually, I didn't even think of Goddard. So here's Goddard over here. You could kind of go Goddard and Fulgham. There are definite ways to go here where you're covering a lot of bases. You're putting a lot of points in the lineup. And as a matter of fact, in this scenario, we can actually go with a Hollister or a Scott or a Rodgers.
Sure.
Wouldn't mind getting up to Disley. Then you go down to Rager to one of these guys. So that's some cash game approaches that I think I would use.
Yep.
I'm just reading through any kind of comments to see if I'm missing anything. I was paying attention here. All right, let's real quick, talk some FanDuel. Everybody says we don't talk enough FanDuel. We talk FanDuel just after DraftKings. So, BobbyWOW, MVP candidates for today. Got to be the two running backs. Of course, we like Russell Wilson. Who else?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be all over the running backs in GPP and cash. I think they're the two best plays of the slate, to be honest with you. Obviously, Russell Wilson's a stud. He's a beast. But I just love the running backs. I love the usage they're going to get. I love that they're both involved in the passing game. So they're my two favorite MVP plays. I think, aside from Russ, it gets sketchy on FanDuel after Russ and the two running backs. So I've got a couple 1-stars for just like silly for the milli GPP plays. But, those three guys I think are really by far the best captain plays. And then it drops off significantly from there.
Yep.
I mean, I would certainly mix it up, but I agree. I like the running backs. Russ has been great.
He's going to be 40% owned in the MVP, though, right?
Russ is going to, but he doesn't spread the football around that much. It's usually one or two of those pass catchers, and but if he does spread it around and you start get those tight ends involved, and Disley gets a touchdown, and a passing touchdown to Metcalf, and one goes to Lockett, then Russ gets there. One nice thing about FanDuel is, we don't really have to play like you don't have to worry about the salary. You just play the person who scores the most fantasy points, and that's how you win. Let me bring up our projections here and see ownerships compared to these thoughts. So if we take a look at the MVP and we look at some ownership projections, Russ 30. I mean, look at this, dude.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I think for cash games and even for like single entry or 3-entry max, Russ, Sanders, and Carson are going to be the three guys I rotate between. If you want to, if you're playing 150 lineups and you want to be different, I feel like you can get a ton of leverage by coming in extremely low on Russ. And again, this is for GPP, big tournament, but I think you can, come way low on Russ, maybe, 10% exposure or less even, And also the same thing with Wentz. I think 12% MVP ownership for Wentz tonight is too high, frankly.
Ouch.
Even though we just found out there was some fake news, but
Hater.
so
You're a
between
hater.
Russ and him, I mean, you could get 40% of leverage on field and be able to spread that out to some of these other guys who, on FanDuel are unlikely to be in the optimal, but if they are, you've now got the plenty of exposure,
and you're not
for
splitting
those
it.
types of lineups.
It comes down to, are you playing to win or are you playing to cash? Like if you're playing to win, you got to do something risky that's going to lose frequently, but when you win a lot of money.
Yep.
The issue is when you play a conservative, like chalk approach. I've won these many times, and I don't even make back the money I spent on the 150, and I take down first place. And you're like, damn, that sucked. It would be nice to win one solo every once in a while, or with only 2 or 3 of my friends instead of sharing it with 200 or 300 of my dearest friends. So yeah, that's really the difference in approach on FanDuel. You've got to almost do something that feels a little bit uncomfortable. But here, it doesn't feel uncomfortable to play Miles Sanders or Chris Carson. No. They're not going to be owned at all.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. That's very, very low. Obviously, Russ Wilson is the most obvious, the highest. I could see a sharp approach to these. Just always fade the most expensive guy as your MVP. Like, just always fade it.
Either that or get really, really different. If you're going to play Russ at MVP and you want to take down a tournament, I would say avoid Lockett and Metcalf.
Yep.
If you want to be different with Russ and those 10% or 15% exposure, if you want to get crazy, avoid DK and Lockett and, pair people like Swaim and the tight end, or, both tight ends, or
leave a ton of money on the table. Yeah.
And I mean, you naturally will with those pairings, but
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So some people ask for some absolute rules for tonight for mass multi-entering. And number one, people make too many rules. Don't make so many rules. Rules rule you out of wins way too often. My one absolute rule tonight would be, I don't want 2 defenses together. I don't want 2 defenses ever to show up in the same lineup. I don't want 2 kickers in the same lineup. So I will rule those things out. And if I'm playing Carson Wentz as an MVP or a captain, he's going to have 2 of his pass catchers in the lineup with me. I need 2 people with Wentz. Probably only one with Russ. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys do it like I do, but when I start building in the DS, like I start with no rules, and then I just add as I go on. Like if I'm seeing something like today, I was getting, it's not like a rule that I typically make, but today I was getting a lot of Carson Wentz solo in the flex. So I just didn't want to run out a naked Carson Wentz with like just a Miles Sanders. So I put in a rule that, hey, I want Wentz with 1 pass catcher in the flex. So for me, that's kind of how I go about it. It depends on, how many lineups you're building, but yeah, I think that makes sense. The no kicker, no defense.
Like quarterback in the flex, at least 1 pass catcher.
Yeah, and I mean, some quarterbacks you can run them out like a Kyler Murray maybe, or somebody like that. They can be by themselves, but just because the DS is trying to put in so many, that point projection, sometimes you might not get a pass catcher with them, and that's unlikely to happen.
One of the dangerous things about the quarterback, whenever you're optimizing, is their mean projections are always higher than other players because they just have higher floors because they're always touching the football. But the running backs and the wide receiver, they all tend to have higher ceilings, especially definitely on DraftKings and somewhat on FanDuel. So the optimizer wants to jam the quarterback in constantly because he's got the highest mean projection, but that's not always the best play. So making that flex rule actually makes it like a block of 2 players instead of 1, and it moots the higher projection for the quarterback a little bit. It's actually a really sharp rule. I like it a lot. Any other thoughts on the slate, guys, before we sign off?
No, we'll find out in actives here in a little bit. And if David Moore is out, then we can, push the chips in on Freddie Swain. But other than that, no, I think it's going to be a fun game. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to this one. I love the fact that my favorite part of this, and Bobby, I like I said, I think you're on board. I think we're all on board with this. I just love that everybody thinks Carson Wentz is going to get benched. It's not because I don't think he'll get benched. I think, that's possible. But I think more people think it's happening or like it's already decided than what it is. He's getting benched if he plays like shit. If you think he's going to play like shit, play some Hurts. It's fine.
I just
Carson
tried
Wentz
to.
throws 2 interceptions in the first quarter. He's gone. If he fumbles, he might be gone. Like
I just tried to get the over on my book, and then since I'm on an offshore, it was minus 120, so I couldn't hit it.
Of course.
I wanted.
That's how I would go, because I would be betting the over, not because I'm definitely sure he's going to go over, but because I think
good value.
You can hedge it with, Carson Wentz throws 2 interceptions or like some prop like that. Like it's hedgeable. I was trying to think of what could hedge that. Like Wentz turns the ball over twice. I don't know if you could bet on that as a prop.
Yeah, you might be able to make that.
I mean, if you could bet that prop, it must be like plus 700. Quarterback 2 turnovers. Like that is a long shot prop. So give me that plus 700, and then on the flip side, I'll bet the over 230 yards.
And maybe you get a middle on it.
Both ways. Is that a prop? No.
Number's at 7 now, though.
7 what?
Spread.
Oh, so the spread increased a little bit from 6.5. That's not necessarily a change. That just could be the book that you're on. Yeah, I mean, like I see 6.5. It's at 7. You're seeing 7 right now.
Yeah, on my bookie it's 7, but
yeah, my bookies
they're
not as sharp.
Not everybody gets to live in cool states like New York where you can't play tennis.
I can't. Yeah, or college football. It's brutal. Is Swain the wide receiver if Moore is out? Yes. He's the number 3, and we do think Moore will be out. Kirk Cousins and Kyler Murray were the only 2 QBs not to throw for over 300 versus Seattle, and both got at least 250. So there has yet to be a quarterback that got under 250 yards against Seattle this season. That's why I'm like, go the opposite way with Wentz. Play more Wentz than you normally would, and more of those Eagles pass catchers. Let the fake news, ignore it.
Oh, I'm betting this, Geek.
Bet it. Ignore the fake news.
All right, you ready for this bet?
Oh boy.
Rager to get 100 yards receiving, 1 touchdown, and Philly to win.
10,000 plus 10,000
plus 8,000.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either.
I don't mind it. Is that a boost?
I'll put $5 on that.
Yeah, I'd go for that. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the Turds show. Where my Turds at? Showdown Breakdown. If you're in here and you're not a DFS Army subscriber, make sure you go to DFS Army, get signed up right now. You can use the Domination Station, get all the ownership projections, all the stuff you need to dominate. You see us win every showdown every week. There's a reason it happens. Get in there. Join us. It's all good. For Bobby, for Josh, for myself, good luck tonight, everybody. Let's take it down. Helmets up. Let's do this.